How's it going, Giants fans? My name is Alex, and my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. And today we're going to discuss the grades and analyzation of the Giants' win over the Carolina Panthers from Week 2. And I have to say, it's been quite a while since we won 2 consecutive games. I think the last time we won an opening game was back in 2016, and I don't even remember the last time we won 2 games in a row. And this is just a good feeling all around. Everyone's kind of excited, a little bit of optimism, a little bit of hope. And I know in the past we've been very optimistic about this team, and now I feel like we can actually justify it. Now it's not just false hope. There's legitimate hope for the future. Brian Dable, Wink Martindale, freaking absolute stud, doing what he's doing with this defensive side. We want to go over individual performances, some standout players, some really, really good grades from Week 2. But I know everyone's really excited. We're going on to Dallas next week, hosting them at MetLife on Monday night. It's going to be a hell of a game. They actually somehow managed to beat the Bengals with Cooper Rush playing, but, going to AT&T and playing there is always difficult. So, the Giants definitely have their work cut out for them, but I think we have the advantage in this game. I'm not going to go into it acting like we're going to win. I think it's going to be very competitive, but I do think we have a really good chance, and that's more than what we've been able to say in the past, which is definitely exciting. But Anthony, before we dive into the stats and start to break down some of these individual performances, how you do today, my friend?
I'm doing amazing. The Giants are 2-0, right? I just woke up today and I was like, it feels good to wake up after a Giants win. I haven't had that feeling too frequently over the past 5 or 6 years, right? So, having that feeling back-to-back Sundays right here in the 2022 regular season to start the season, no less, it's an amazing feeling. It's very refreshing, and it's very, very exciting to see the Giants as one of the few undefeated teams left in the NFL through 2 weeks in the regular season. I think yesterday's performance was really impressive from the coaching staff. I know there's going to be a lot of discussion about the stats of certain players and players not playing or who did play and played in really limited fashion, Kenny Golladay, etc. But I think at the end of the day, the Giants are finding ways to win. It's gritty, it's ugly at times, but they're getting the job done. They're fighting hard and competing through the full 60 minutes and making their way through to the end. And a lot of that, in my opinion, has to do with coaching. So I'm excited to dive into some of the grades and stats for the New York Giants players, but I got to highlight the fact that the coaches are putting these guys in position to succeed. If we're going to go into any of these grades and stats to say they're rather unimpressive, well, then you have to give credit to the coaching staff for finding ways to win. And I feel like over the past few years with some of these previous head coaches that we had, the Giants have had players that maybe weren't good enough to win those games, but the coaching staff also did not put them in position to win those games. I think right now we're seeing a case where maybe the Giants roster is not filled with an abundance of talent. Like, they've got some good players, but it's not an overabundantly talent, not an elite roster by any means, but they're in positions to make plays and succeed. And I think that does give credit to the coaching staff. And that also does show a stark difference between this coaching regime compared to the previous ones that we've had to endure over the past 6 years. So again, super, super excited to be 2-0 and really excited with the direction of the New York Giants this season.
Absolutely. So let's dive right into the offensive line. Definitely one that we're all a little bit concerned about, but we are excited about one individual player, and that is Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas is the highest graded tackle through 2 weeks in the NFL, my friends. Good job. We found ourselves a bookend left tackle. I guess that's one of the only really decent things that Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman left us behind. Somebody who can protect our quarterback for the next however long we keep him. He has been fantastic to start the year. Obviously, in week 1, he gave up 1 pressure on 61 offensive snaps. And this time around, he gave up 3 pressures, 1 hit, and 2 hurries against the Carolina Panthers, and a very solid Brian Burns. And he really put the Giants on edge. He was fantastic. But Andrew Thomas had one of the best run blocking grades of any tackle this week. He was a really good in pass blocking, aside from a couple pressures. He otherwise was very, very strong. We'll take a look at his film later on in the week as we clip all of it. But having that, man, what a relief to have a great left tackle in tow. This is definitely a good situation for the Giants, and knowing that even if Daniel Jones doesn't stick around for the future, they have somebody who can protect their future quarterback, and that's essential. I'm very excited about it. Anthony, how are you feeling about Andrew Thomas so far?
I'm thrilled. I mean, Andrew Thomas is a bookend left tackle. I think he's establishing himself as an elite player in the NFL. I think there's a really good shot. I mean, if he keeps up this level of play, he'll find himself on one of those 2 all-pro teams come the season's end. And I think it'll be totally deserved. And I do foresee him having that kind of a season, that high level of a season that could ultimately place him on an all-pro team. I mean, through 2 weeks, he's just been utterly dominant. I know he's the highest graded offensive tackle from Pro Football Focus. You mentioned all the stats in terms of the minimal amount of pressures that he's allowing. And this is really something that's been stemming from the final 8 weeks of last season. This is no fluke. This is no early season fluke where, a guy gets into the regular season, gets hot, and fades out. that isn't this, because he ended last season on this note, playing at this high level. He's just continuing where he left off, picking up where he left off. And I think that's the really impressive part of this, is that it's pretty much certain not to be a fluke. And that's really exciting for us Giants fans, because we know offensive tackle has been a problem for the Giants for years and years. The left tackle position is one that we just haven't been able to solidify no matter who we tried there. Nate Solder wasn't the guy. Eric Flowers definitely wasn't the guy. But now Andrew Thomas is the guy. At the very least, on a consistent basis, every Sunday, you're getting decent offensive tackle play from the left side. That is of tremendous value. That is so, so huge for the Giants, and he is one of the biggest building blocks for the future of the New York Giants as they rebuild this roster over the course of the next couple of seasons. So I'm super excited by Andrew Thomas's performance versus Carolina, his performance in week 1 as well, and I can't wait to see him play for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely am excited. But left guard, a little bit more of an interesting situation unfolding here with Ben Bredesen and Josh Ezeudu. Bredesen actually had a pretty solid game, 81.6 PFF pass blocking grade, gave up 1 pressure on 56 offensive snaps. So obviously we'll take a look at the film later on this week as well. But he had a pretty solid game, and I know left guard's kind of been a up and down roller coaster ride with Matt Skura last year and names I would rather not mention. But Ben Bredesen, they've been kind of splitting time with him and Ezeudu, and he looks really solid yesterday. So I think that's something to harp on. And Ezeudu had also a decent pass blocking grade, 72.5. Gave up 1 pressure over 17 offensive snaps. Wasn't as good in the running game, but definitely showed some flashes of quality. So far, I'm definitely excited about the growth of the offensive line here, especially at left guard. Seeing Ben Bredesen actually step up and have a pretty solid game. At center, John Feliciano gave up 1 pressure over 73 offensive snaps. Did not grade out very well. He has been a little bit of a weakness, but this is what we expected. He only really played 250 offensive snaps at center in his entire career, rather maybe about 300 snaps in his career before transitioning there full-time for the Giants. So definitely a player that we need to see a little bit more out of, but he's doing enough. He's not messing up snaps, and that's all we can really hope for right now, is like a new center who's kind of taking on a unfamiliar job, is not messing up any snaps, as the Carolina Panthers I think had 3 or 4 fumbles last week in week 1 because of that transition to the quarterback. So Mark Lewinsky at right guard, 4 pressures allowed over 73 offensive snaps. Definitely not his best game. Pass blocking was not very good. Solid run blocking game. But what are you thinking about those guys before we dive into Evan Neal here?
Yeah, I think the interior of the offensive line is a little bit of a problem for the New York Giants. I think the revolving door that they're having at left guard is definitely concerning. Now, I understand for the most part at left guard, it was Ben Bredesen in week 2. He played 56 offensive snaps. Joshua Ezeudu only played 17, but kind of just having the situation where they're rotating these guys in. I like it, but it's a double-edged sword. And on one hand, you're getting some developmental time for Joshua Ezeudu, which is really good. But on the other hand, neither one of these guys is really standing out as a true top-tier performer and a clear-cut starter, which I definitely think is a problem for the Giants. I think left guard is one of those positions where we're probably having a stopgap year here with Ben Bredesen, hoping that Joshua Ezeudu can develop by the end of the year into something quality so we can call him starter next year. But if not, it's probably one of those positions that they need to address early in the 2023 NFL draft. And, of course, at center, I think that maybe John Feliciano, he played guard primarily throughout his career. Maybe center just isn't going well for him. Maybe this adjustment, this move to a new position, he thought it would go well, and maybe it just isn't. Maybe it's an experiment gone wrong. I'm not exactly sure, but he hasn't looked super impressive for the first 2 weeks to me. A couple of, really bad reps in pass protection. But as you mentioned, he isn't throwing the ball 10 feet over Daniel Jones's head, so we can at least hang our hats on that and say, at least he's snapping the ball properly. And then, of course, at right guard, Mark Lewinsky. I think Mark Lewinsky is playing just rather average, rather okay. I think he could be better, but he probably also could be super way worse. He definitely could be way worse. But when you're looking at Mark Lewinsky, that's kind of what we expected. We paid him to be a decent, average, quality level starter, and I think that's what we're getting. I think it was worth the money, worth the investment. We know that he is a stopgap player. He'll be here for the next couple of years, but we know that he's not the young future of the right guard position for the Giants. The Giants are getting what they paid for on the offensive line. We know that Joe Shane was handcuffed this offseason. He didn't have a lot of money to spend, so where he did spend, picking up low-key guys like John Feliciano, Mark Lewinsky, Ben Bredesen, those guys. Ben Bredesen obviously was here last year, but re-signed. I mean, these are just those low-key signings that Joe Schoen was forced to make. So you can't expect too much from these players. It's not like he was going out there spending $10 million per year on a right guard. He spent 6. So there's a big difference in that wage gap. So I think what the Giants are getting on the offensive line, again, is what they paid for. It's decent enough. It does need to be better, but it is early on in the regular season. Hopefully it will continue to improve, and maybe by season's end, we'll have a competent unit in front of Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and looking over at right tackle with Evan Neal, he gave up 3 total pressures, a sack, and 2 hurries. Had a decent pass blocking grade, but again, we're going to look at the film and take a look at really what happened there. But overall, I think he played better than week 1, which is all we could hope for. Just steady progression as the weeks go by here. Played 73 total snaps along with the rest of the offensive line, so that definitely stands out. But, this is a long journey for Evan Neal, as it was Andrew Thomas. We expect him to struggle. Most rookie tackles are. Charles Cross is struggling. Ikem Ekwonu is struggling. Trevor Penning's not even playing. So, this is definitely a situation where, like, Evan Neal it's okay for him to have a up and down roller coaster rookie season. We didn't expect him to be elite right off the bat, but we do expect him to develop into a very competent offensive tackle in the future. So if we get a couple of really good performances from him this year, I will be very content. But on the defensive side of the football, I do want to discuss a few individual players. Xavier McKinney, Julian Love, and Jihad Ward and Ocean Ximenez. Those are the 4 guys and Adoree Jackson, of course. But, those are kind of the main guys I want to discuss. Let's start off with Julian Love. Julian Love had a tremendous game yesterday. Once again, the guy is just a one-size-fits-all player. Anywhere you put the guy, he is able to produce. He can play free safety, cornerback, slot cornerback, strong safety. He does so many things for this team. He fits so many molds, and I really want to shout him out for that. He had 2 pressures. And look, this is a defensive back. One of the ways the Giants managed to curate pressure yesterday with a lack of pass rush was sending a lot of those DBs, sending a lot of those safeties on blitzes. Julian Love finished the game with 2 pressures, a sack, 2 hurries, 4 stops in the run game, and 6 total tackles. He was an absolute menace. He had the big sack at the end of the game against Baker Mayfield, which forced Carolina to punt. He hit him when he threw that pass to the sideline to CMC the play before that. He was all over the place on that defensive side, and he has done just a great job fitting this mold. He turned into a fringe starter player to an absolute start for the Giants on defense, and a lot of that has to do with just tremendous coaching from Wink Martindale. So a big shout out to Julian Love. And, what are your thoughts on Julian so far? I think we always knew he was a great player. We've been a huge fan of his on the podcast for a long time, but he's finally living up to those expectations and really making the most of his opportunity.
Yeah, we've been huge Julian Love fans for a while, and it's great to finally see him get his flowers. Great to see him finally earn that starting position and thrive in it. I mean, the Giants don't win that game without Julian Love yesterday. That's how I feel. I thought he turned in a really solid performance. The clutch sack at the end of the game, he was called upon by Wink Martindale to get in there and pressure the quarterback, and he did exactly that. And that's kind of how it's always been for Julian Love. The coaching staff will ask him to do a job, and he gets the job done, which is what you love to see. He always just finds a way. It might not be his position. It might not be his designated role pre-game, but if he's asked to do it, he's got the heart, he's got the balls to do it, and he gets the job done, which I love to see. I think Julian Love is the perfect player to have on the back end of your defense. He plays every single position, whether that be strong safety, free safety, in the box as a linebacker, in the slot as a nickel corner, or on the outside. He lines up everywhere, and he can do it the job just as well as almost anybody on the field for the Giants. So when you're talking about valuable players, Julian Love maybe will never get that kind of credit, that recognition as being any type of Pro Bowl level or all-pro level player, but he is, in my opinion, one of the most valuable players on the New York Giants because he is there to fill in for every single role, and the jobs that he does them well. He always executes. Is he, without his mistakes? Of course not. Everyone makes mistakes on the football field, but Julian Love is just a consistent, reliable player, and I really love what he brings to the table, and I'm excited to see him continue to work in the starting capacity for the Giants this season.
Yeah, and speaking of other safeties, Xavier McKinney, what a freaking game from him too. This guy is just all over the football field. He does so much for this team. And let me give you some information that what genius Wink Martindale figured out how to use McKinney. He said, okay, you know what, McKinney, you're our best defensive player. We need you to step up and make a play. We need you to step up and not just make a play. We need you to guard arguably the best running back in football with Christian McCaffrey. They moved him up from the free safety position where Dane Belton kind of transitioned to in this game specifically, and played him in the box on the defensive line. They asked him to do, so many unbelievable things. He had 18 snaps at free safety, 18 in the box, and 14 on the defensive line. He was man-marking Christian McCaffrey, who I think finished with 4 receptions for 24 yards, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. Did not make an impact in the receiving game for the most part. He was locked down in the running game. Xavier McKinney had 2 batted passes to go with it. He was an absolute stud. Also finished with 5 total tackles and, 2 passes defended, which were the batted passes. And he just did such a good job around the line of scrimmage, man. This is our all-pro safety. The stats, if you really want to see his impact, go watch the film. He shows up all over the place. He makes unbelievable plays. I know sometimes the Pro Bowl is just a stat meter, basically, but this guy makes an impact in many different variables, many different factors on the game. And seeing his progression, watching him blossom into this level of player has just been beautiful to watch. One of the few silver linings for this team. What are your thoughts on Xavier McKinney up to this point?
I think Xavier McKinney is just continuing to do what he started last season. Maybe he's not playing at the most high elite level right now, but I think that's in the cards for him. I think he's getting into the swing of things. Early season, first 2 weeks, he looks like a high quality player, and we know that he is. Obviously, Xavier McKinney, if you've been a longtime follower of the channel, he's been one of my favorite players on the Giants since before he even took his first snap with the Giants. I loved him as a prospect coming out of Alabama, and I think that he is an awesome person off the field. So I really love Xavier McKinney. I want to see him succeed, and he is succeeding. And I think that he is a player that has all pro potential. Might not come this year. And I know this is now his 3rd season in the NFL. But he's really starting to come into his own as a player who in the next couple of years should make an all-pro team in my eyes. If the Giants continue to build this roster, get talent around him, continue to pair him with good safety and corners around him, I think that Xavier McKinney is going to continue to grow and develop and turn into an all-pro level player. I love what he brings to the table. He's clutch. He's great in coverage. I see him play a lot of man coverage in Wink Martindale's scheme, and he is really good in man coverage for a safety. When you take a look at cornerbacks versus safeties and the way that they play in man, Xavier McKinney plays man coverage as well as some of the cornerbacks on the New York Giants roster. You can rely on Xavier McKinney to go lock down a tight end, lock down a slot receiver. He has that ability in him. He also has the ability to play down at the line of scrimmage and bat those passes and make those gritty run-stopping tackles, right? So he really does it all, whether he's playing on the back end as a rangy safety or if he's up in the box playing as a hybrid linebacker. Xavier McKinney is a very, very versatile safety, very strong player, both in pass coverage and run defense. And I think he's exactly what Wink Martindale needed in his defense, and he is thriving.
Yeah, we expected this. We expected Xavier McKinney to really show his best self, in Wink Martindale's defense. So I'm very, very happy to see that he's blossoming once again. A couple of resurgent players, though, 2 in mind that I have. Dexter Lawrence, he's been really good to start the year. I've been very, very, very impressed with Dexter Lawrence, and he's been good in the run game. He's been good with the pressures just this past week. Against Carolina, 4 pressures, a quarterback hit, and 3 hurries on the season, 6 pressures, 3 QB hits, and 3 hurries. He's a big boy, man. Sexy Dexy definitely brings the grit, and I do appreciate that about him. He is all gas, always going 100%. I really do think that he is an integral piece to this defense, a really solid player, and everybody is elevating their game for Wink Martindale right now. And one of the other guys that's really stood up, and this is one of the ones that surprised me the most. This was a fringe roster player a couple of weeks ago, my friends. Oshane Ximines. Where the hell did this guy come from? It took 4 stinking years to get the most out of Oshane Ximines, and wow. He has just put together a stellar start to the 2022 season across 2 games, 5 pressures, 1.5 sacks, 2 QB hits, 2 hurries, 1 batted pass, 3 stops in the run game, and 3 total tackles. He has been all over the place, cleaning up plays, cleaning up sacks. I am very impressed with him. Him and Jihad Ward, him as well. He has been tremendous in the run game and helping out this defense. A cheap acquisition, formerly with Wink Martindale back in 2020 with Jacksonville last year. But man, that combo of Ximines and Jihad Ward, where I did not expect them to be as competent as they are. God help us when Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari return. This defense is going to be something special, guys. I think we have something special right now. That's without Leonard Williams in the last half of that game yesterday. And then you factor in that they don't have 2 of their primary pass rushers, and Aaron Robinson is out with appendicitis. This is tremendous. We're dominating on the defensive side with a band of misfit toys, and they're quickly elevating out of misfit toyland, and they're becoming established players that we can trust and rely on, and that is just tremendous. That is exactly what we wanted to see. This is an exemplary defense. What showcases good coaching provides the results of adequate coaching. And, the past couple of years, Patrick Graham's he's done okay, right? Patrick Graham's been okay, but Wink Martindale's took this to another level, man. He has showed us aggressive football, buying into the scheme, buying into the culture and the strategy. He has these guys wrapped around his finger. He has these guys believing every word he says. And why? Because he's proven, man. He's done it at every level. He's done it for the Baltimore Ravens for a decade, and they've had one of the best defenses in football for a long time. And look at Baltimore now. They're struggling defensively without him. They just got destroyed by Tua and the Dolphins in the fourth quarter yesterday. If you guys watched that game, I am so ungodly impressed with Wink Martindale and what he's done for this defense, man. What are your thoughts about Dexter Lawrence, O'Shea, and Zimenez, really picking up the slack and helping out thus far?
I mean, I'm super thrilled about Dexter Lawrence. This is a player who I really liked in his first couple seasons. He kind of started to teeter out, didn't really play too well in year 3, but year 4, 2 weeks in, bounce back season for Dexter Lawrence. Big sexy Dexy is balling. He's getting after the quarterback. He's making an impact on the running game. He looks like what we all wanted him to be the past 2 years, and he's finally starting to realize that potential. I'm hoping he keeps the pace for the rest of the regular season. I think that would be tremendous for the Giants, especially considering the fact that now Leonard Williams is hobbled with a knee injury. We'll see the timetable on that. I think that's going to be super important for the Giants defense, how long Leonard Williams is out for if he does end up missing games. I think there's a good chance he misses some weeks. I think it's going to be from what I understand, it's not too severe, and it's probably going to be an injury similar to Kayvon Thibodeau's. That's the initial hope, at least. But I do think that the Giants are going to have to add some depth on the interior of their defensive line through the waiver wire or some other means in the next week or so. But circling back around to what you said about O'Shea and Zimenez, I mean, that's a guy who's just come out of nowhere, a player that we weren't even sure if he was going to make the final 53-man roster, and he has been more than capable as a starting edge rusher in the New York Giants defense thus far. Maybe that's all he needed was a good defensive coordinator to get the most out of him, and the Giants finally have that in Wink Martindale. I'm with you, Alex. I can't say enough good things about Wink Martindale and everything he's done for the Giants defense through 2 weeks of the regular season. It's been so impressive to watch him work. I think the Giants don't win either of those first 2 games this season without Wink Martindale and his defensive scheme. He has been unbelievable for the Giants so far, getting the most out of every single player. As I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, the Giants maybe don't have that overabundance of talent, but it seems like they might have that abundance of talent in the coaching staff. Guys like Wink Martindale. Wink Martindale is a proven, known to be great defensive coordinator. That was a tremendous hiring by Brian Daboll and the New York Giants, and so far, so good from Wink Martindale on the defensive scheme. I mean, blitzing at the perfect times, being aggressive late in the game when the offense isn't expecting it, playing with a heavy man coverage scheme, drawing up such creative blitz packages, and again, getting the most out of players that we didn't even expect that much from, right? Dexter Lawrence is one of those players included. So again, the defense has been so impressive through 2 weeks. We thought this was going to be a major weak point for the Giants going into the regular season just because of that lack of talent on the roster, but coaching can really make up the difference there sometimes, and I think that's what we're seeing with Wink Martindale on the Giants defense.
Absolutely. And what would this episode be if we don't take a look at the receivers and kind of what is happening there? So there's a couple of standout players I do want to mention. And, this starts on a more down note, I guess I would say, with Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney. I mean, Kenny Golladay has been completely factored out of this offense, guys. I mean, I saw some reporters said that Brian Daboll had told Kenny Golladay earlier in the week that he was going with David Sills as the primary option on the outside this week against Carolina. And it showed, guys. It showed. Kenny Golladay barely played. He played 3%. 3%. That's a whole 3% of the offensive snaps in yesterday's game. He's getting paid $16 million a season to not play. Sounds like a hell of a job. I would take that in a second, by the way. If anyone wants to sign me for $16 million a year, I'll sit on the bench and do whatever you guys tell me. No problem. I'll bring water to the freaking other players. I don't care. Great job to have if you're Kenny Golladay. But I understand why he's probably a little pissed off and why he left the stadium early and didn't want to speak to the media because, I mean, we know the questions they were going to ask him essentially. How do you feel about not playing? And he's probably pretty pissed off about it if I had to guess, which makes me think they're probably going to move on from him after this season for the most part because ultimately you're not playing a $60 million receiver. You might as well cut him and save the $6.7 million they'd save if they cut him next year anyway. So with that being said, David Sills, he only came out for 6 snaps on the entire offense. He played 92% of the snaps, guys. And I think we have a new wide receiver 1. His name is Richie James. Who the hell thought Richie James would be leading the team in catches and yards over 2 weeks? He has 10 catches for 110 yards. Doesn't seem like that much. That's definitely not wide receiver 1 stats. But he's turning into Daniel Jones, one of his most reliable reliable pass catchers. Richie James, guys, he played 42% of offensive snaps yesterday, and he walked away with the most receiving yards on the entire team. That is very, very exciting for a guy that was borderline trying to find a job as a kick returner. Like now he's an integral part of our offense. And Daniel Jones has found him to be open. He hit most of his best throws. Daniel Jones has 2 fantastic throws in the first 2 weeks, both fitting right past linebackers, and both of them went to Richie James. He's finding space, he's getting open, and he's coming down with the football, which is the most important part. And David Sills had some good runs, some good blocks in the running game, but otherwise, had a couple of nice catches. Did decent. Look, he was open a couple times as well. He had that one play where he ran backward before the half, but I think he was just trying to make something out of nothing. So, I'm not gonna, just kind of lay it into him here. But I do think that he has a lot of untapped potential that the Giants are going to try to expose, especially downfield. But what are your thoughts on this wide receiver core? Kadarius Toney didn't play very much. I think he played like 23% of the snaps. Didn't really do as much as we hoped. Kenny Galladay's completely factored out. Richie James, David Sills, Sterling Shepard, primary receivers. Hopefully Wan'Dale Robinson makes a return next week. Definitely a lack of talent at some of these spots, but I'll tell you what, they're still finding ways to win, mostly because of the defense. But, it's definitely an interesting conversation to have.
It's definitely an interesting conversation to have, and we could probably dive into it in a whole nother episode and really dive into the wide receiver core. Richie James being the big standout and big surprise of the wide receiver core. He's been great for the Giants. He's our leading receiver, and he's looked really good when he's out there. As you mentioned, finding space, making some tough catches in traffic. I think Sterling Shepard has been our most dependable receiver out of the original 3 from the roster last season. But Kadarius Toney and Kenny Galladay, massive question marks. Kadarius Toney looks electric when he has the ball in his hands, but he's not being utilized that frequently. He's on the field, or at least he was in week 2. He was on the field quite a bit, but still not that utilized. And then Kenny Galladay is just phased out of the game plan. He's barely even in the cards for the Giants. Week 1, he was out there for the majority of the game and was a non-factor. Week 2, not even out there at all. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Giants decide to do with Kenny Galladay. The fact that they went with David Sills over Kenny Galladay, David Sills being a historic practice squad player who actually did play pretty decently. I got to point that out, though. David Sills had a good game, and I was very impressed by him. He had the one drop that was kind of killer, but other than that, he played well, and I don't blame him for that BS pass interference call. I did not think that was his fault. When they showed it on the secondary angle, it was very clear that that was not intentional contact, but I'll digress on that. I like the way David Sills played. I love the way Richie James is playing through the first 2 weeks. I think Sterling Shepard has been great for us as well, but the Giants need more from their most electric playmakers in the receiving game, right? They need more from Kenny Galladay. They need more from Kadarius Toney, if they even want more. In my opinion, it looks like the Giants don't even want more out of those two. Looks like they don't even want them on the roster. Whether it be character concerns, practice concerns, just issues off the field, whatever it might be, the Giants don't even seem interested in utilizing these 2 players. But they're getting the job done with what they have out there. They're getting the job done with Shep, with Sills, with Richie James. So I guess you just got to play the hot hand. Keep using Richie James as your primary receiver. Keep getting the ball to those who are playing well and that are trying in practice, I guess. But again, it's a long discussion that you can have about the wide receiver core for the New York Giants. It's a very confusing unit when you take a look at it, especially on paper, but it's really disappointing so far through 2 weeks to see Kenny Galladay and Kadarius Toney not living up to expectations and not playing up to their contract or draft positions. So it's very disappointing, but thankfully we've got a couple guys out there who are busting their asses and playing really hard and getting by for the New York Giants.
Yeah, absolutely. And some update on the Leonard Williams injury front. They said he's day-to-day. So that's very, very good. They said the injury isn't as bad as it could have been, which is also very, very good news. So, what I heard from after the game when I was seeing, I think it was Diana Rossini or somebody said that Leonard Williams wasn't with a brace. He had a little bit of a limp, but that was it. And he said he was good. He said he was fine. So hopefully, Leonard Williams is a durable, reliable guy. He has not missed many games in his career. He really, really is a necessity for this team. He is an impact player. We can't afford to lose him. Despite the Giants picking up the slack when he was knocked out. If he can suit up on Monday against Dallas, luckily he has that extra day off. So it seems like he could be playing. It seems like he could be available. Maybe he'll wear a brace and just, they'll keep him on a snap count, put him in more important situations or whatnot. Maybe second half it. But, it seems like we dodged a bullet there. So that's a very, very good sign. Very happy about that. But otherwise, this was a team win. Everybody kind of stepped up. Daniel Jones struggled in the first half, had a couple of really not so inspiring throws. One of them right before the half where he almost got that pick 6, which was very, very, very dangerous and very scary. Altogether, I was I want to see more from Daniel Jones. I think that he has a lot to prove. I think that the offensive line getting better will help him there. I think that receivers getting healthier will help him there. I think Wan'Dale Robinson's going to be a huge piece to this offense once he returns. It seemed like he was getting some action early on, but then, obviously the knee injury knocked him out. So I think maybe he'll be back this upcoming week. Obviously he was unavailable this weekend, but we can hope for the best on the injury front there. Daniel Bellinger, first touchdown catch ever. He had his first catch, was his first touchdown. I was talking to his dad on Twitter, and he was saying how excited he was. He said that Daniel slept with his first touchdown pass. It was hilarious. So that was awesome. I'm really happy for him. I'm really happy that the Giants found a good tight end who has made an impact in the blocking game and is also now starting to make an impact in the receiving game. They're easing him into action, and I think that's the proper way to go about, installing some of these rookies. But altogether, a lot to be happy about. Adoree Jackson, like I said before, another integral piece to this puzzle. He didn't give up a single yard as the closest defender in coverage, which is just astounding. He was tremendous. He locked Robbie Anderson down. DJ Moore definitely beat up on Cordell Flott a little bit. We'll take a look at that later in the week as well. Veteran Fabian Moreau came in after that first touchdown, and DJ Moore wasn't really seen again after that, so that was pretty good. I expect to see Moreau a little bit more this upcoming week as long as Aaron Robinson is out. But definitely excited, my friends. We took a look at a lot of these players, a lot of these individual performances. We'll take a look at the film this week so you can get an idea of what some of these guys produced on the football field. I appreciate you guys tuning in for the last half an hour. Definitely very excited about this win. Very excited about the future of this team. A lot to be excited about. And Anthony, Tibosaurus Rex strikes again. He's well and alive, my friends.
The legend lives on. 2 weeks,
I actually think
wins.
he might be good luck.
I think
unbelievable.
So.
Unbelievable.
The Giants haven't lost a game since I whipped him off this desk and put him in the video, so they're undefeated with Tibosaurus Rex being the mascot. So I think he is good luck.
Yeah, he's a small giant, a mini giant. Gotta love Tibosaurus Rex, my friends. Exactly. Tibosaurus Rex. Once we see Kayvon Thibodeaux on the field, oh man, Tibosaurus Rex is going to be very excited about this team, as will we both. But my friends, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Fireside Giants. Make sure to like, subscribe as always. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy this win. Enjoy this week. We look forward to Dallas and what this team can produce for us moving forward. So appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.